And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Thomas Paterson, who writes, I was a huge fan of Suicide Squad. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we'll see a direct sequel given box office returns. However, no doubt DC still wants James Gunn back. They absolutely do. The Hollywood Reporter ran an article speculating about what film he could do next. Gunn has expressed interest in working on another Harley Quinn project, and Gotham City Sirens might be the next film to feature her. They even speculate, given Gunn's love for Batman, that he could get Ben Affleck back. Ugh, wishful thinking? Yeah, I do think that part is wishful thinking. That part is wishful thinking. Now, of course, the Suicide Squad has been a topic of discussion a lot recently. First, because the movie is freaking amazing. I believe it has the second highest critic rating out of any of the DCEU films at 91%. Only Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman directed by Patty Jenkins, has higher. It's got a 93%. But it also has one of the highest audience ratings of any DCEU movie. I believe it's holding at 83%, which makes it one of the highest audience rated, verified audience rated movies in the entire DCEU. The movie is spectacular. Now, it doesn't work for everybody. No movie works for everybody. So I'm sure there's some people watching this right now that maybe didn't like it. And that's totally cool. All film's subjective. But for a lot of us, the movie is freaking spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. It actually replaced Shazam as my second favorite DCEU film.
It did?
Yeah, it didn't pass Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. Man of Steel is still my favorite DCU movie. But this Suicide Squad came in second place on that. It's absolutely spectacular. But then, unfortunately, just like we kind of predicted would happen, the second story that became all the rage to talk about was the box office failings of it. And we went through a big, long list about why it happened. And we went through a list before the movie opened about here's why Suicide Squad is great,
it's a real
but
bummer.
that is not going to do good at the box office. And we went through the list before the movie even opened and after. So it's got a lot of people wondering, well, what will James Gunn do next? Because Walter Hamada already said, oh, we're doing more things with James Gunn. I mean, he just made one of the most crowd-pleasing movies we've ever made. We want to do more with James Gunn. Here's an interesting thing that came to us out of that Hollywood Reporter report. And the two words that come up are Justice League. Now, I'm going to say why this is interesting in a second, but here's the report from the Hollywood Reporter. It says, another possibility to keep on the back burner of potential projects is Justice League. I know, but hear it out. While a new film is likely a ways off, Gunn recently responded to CNA's Genevieve Lowe about a potential Justice League versus Suicide Squad film, that which we've talked a bunch about recently. That confrontation is also the basis for Rocksteady's upcoming video game Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and comic companies do love synergy between brands. Gunn admitted it wasn't a bad idea. Hold on a second there, just a little bit of a thing here. Okay. Gunn admitted it wasn't a bad idea before saying that he'd have to figure out who's on the Justice League first, noting that the complicated nature of who's still playing which roles. While it certainly wouldn't be the Justice League narrative that Snyder set up, those characters are too great to never see come together again. All right. Here's the interesting thing. I had heard a little while ago, just I think days before I saw Suicide Squad, that they had talked to James Gunn about doing Justice League. Now, that's not a big surprise, because in talking with a director that you know you want to have come back and do more projects, of course, one of the topics of conversation will be Justice League. Of course it will be. That doesn't mean you're super, super serious about, let's sit down here and let's really dive into this. Let's talk what we do with Justice League, with James Gunn, and really go deep and things like that. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But I know it was at least brought up. That I know. And now we've got the Hollywood Reporter also mentioning, Justice League. I'm not the only person who heard this. There are many other people in the industry who heard the same thing that I'm hearing as well. Now, does that mean they're going to do Justice League? I'm not saying that they are. But I am telling you, it's definitely something that's on the table right now. This could be one of the future things that he does. And I'll tell you why it would be a great idea. James Gunn has proven on different properties that he knows how to take a bunch of different superhero characters and make something very cohesive, crowd-pleasing, critic-pleasing, great entertainment out of it. He did it in a PG-13 Marvel universe. He did it with DC in an R-rated Suicide Squad. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say this. If they were to give James Gunn Justice League, say, James, you're the one to reinvent Justice League for us. As much as they want to let James Gunn do whatever he wants to do, I am telling you, they will not let him do Justice League rated R. There's no way they would let him do rated R.
So many kids will not be able to see that.
And it's Suicide Squad is one thing, Justice League is something else. So if they were to do that, and now we're speaking in hypotheticals.
Yeah.
But if they were to do that, there's no way any studio, Warner Brothers or Marvel, would let him do Justice League rated R. But that's fine. James Gunn has already done PG-13, and look at the results he did with Guardians, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that a director like this, who knows how to please the audience, who knows how to get rave critic reviews, but now you give him more popular characters, more popular IP, and let him take that and make a really good ensemble film like he did with Guardians, like he did with Suicide Squad. This could be magic. Now, at the same time, you then have to ask, what if those elements of James Gunn that makes his movies so distinct and so unique and so entertaining, are those necessarily the right traits for everything? No. Like, would I want to see a Jane Eyre directed by James Gunn? Probably not. Not if I'm a Jane Eyre purist, right? Would I want to see Julius Caesar directed by James Gunn? Probably not, because I don't know that I'd want those things that make James Gunn so great. I don't know if I'd want to see those things in a telling of Julius Caesar. I like the classic Julius Caesar, thank you very much. So could his sensibilities really serve a Justice League? I don't know the answer to that. I think the potential is there. Maybe not. Kim, let me ask you this. Let's say tomorrow that they announced, and by the way, just for anybody joining us late, this is all speculation at this point. We've heard they've spoken to him about Justice League, but I'm sure they've spoken to him probably about 30 or 40 different projects. But for the sake of conversation, if they were to come out tomorrow and announce James Gunn is going to reinvent the Justice League and bring the next Justice League iteration in 3 years, what's your reaction to that and why?
I hate to say this. I know people are going to disagree with me. I don't think it's a good fit. I don't. I think the Justice League is kind of already established, and in that Zack Snyder universe, it's a bit darker. Yeah, it's a bit too dark. And I know people are going to say, did you see Suicide Squad? Did you see the first 10 minutes of Suicide Squad? No, I get it. I just feel like that tone, for me, doesn't match his style. I think that he does such a wonderful job with ensemble cast. The humor is there, but I feel like what he does is so wonderfully rooted in humor. However, I just don't think that the tone that's already been set up, it would feel, obviously you have a different director. You're going to have to get used to the fact that it feels a little bit different, but I feel like it would be so different that people would be like, wait, I feel off. My equilibrium feels off in this, because in Zack Snyder's Justice League, it was darker, and yes, there was more humor, and yes, we got to see the characters get fleshed out more, but for some reason, for me, his storytelling style, I don't feel like is a good fit.
Right.
I just don't. And that's not to say he can't do the job. That's not to say it wouldn't have his James Gunn touch, because there's great directors that sometimes do things that what their gifts don't translate well with that property. And that's just how I feel in terms of James Gunn. I think he would be fantastic for Gotham City Sirens. I say, let's do that. That would be wonderful. I say the next time we see Harley Quinn, again, having her work with James Gunn, that would be spot on. That would totally be his wheelhouse. For some reason, for me, when you say James Gunn and Justice League, it doesn't quite
for me, it's
together
a
for me.
For me, it's a question mark.
Because I don't like that.
But at the same time, when we think of James Gunn, I think a lot of people make the mistake of only think of Suicide Squad and Guardians of the Galaxy. you also got to remember his films that came before that, whether you're talking about Super or you're talking about Slither. I mean, Slither.
What's the one with the boy?
Slither's a horror film.
Yeah,
I mean, Slither is a horror film that is also extremely funny at the same time, but very dark and gross and horrifying all at the same time. So that's why for me, I'm not against the idea of James Gunn doing a Justice League. I think that could be fascinating. But I also, with you, I do have question marks about the fit. You know, Christopher Nolan is one of the greatest directors in the world. I wouldn't have him direct a Will Ferrell movie. You know, not every great director can fit everything unless your name is Steven Spielberg, who can apparently do anything. But I mean, so I don't know. It would be a big question mark for me. I would
you know what it makes me think of is like, because you were just reminding me of Slither, and I was like, what is the movie with the boy that is not the bad seed? Brightburn. Okay, so like I was saying, Justice League has a darker tone. And for James Gunn, I feel like when he goes dark, he goes into the irreverent very quickly, which some people love. Suicide Squad, that's what it is, you know, with the humor and the darkness there. But I feel like with Wonder Woman, with Aquaman, with Batman, I feel like his version of darkness.
Now, remember, he didn't direct Brightburn. He was a producer on Brightburn.
Oh, he's a producer. Okay, then that's my bad. Because I was like, yeah, that was darker. Okay, then that does change things for me. But
I did produce it, though.
Okay. But still, I feel like his version of going a little bit darker in tone would be a little too much for the Justice League, and it would feel off.
It's a good question. It's a good question. Because listen, I mean, I would have had the exact same questions about the Russo brothers before Captain America and the Winter Soldier. The guys who directed You, Me, and Dupree is going to do Captain America? But look how that turned out.
Look, he may do it, and people may say, where were you all along? You should have done Justice League from the beginning.
Yeah,
it may turn out that way.
Listen, like Kevin Feige said, when I asked Kevin Feige about, James Gunn has never done a big budget anything like this. Why did you get James Gunn to direct? I was already a big fan of Slither, but I said, why did you get James Gunn to direct this Guardians of the Galaxy? And Feige just looked at me and said, because a good storyteller is a good storyteller. And maybe that's it too. So, I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm kind of on the fence about it. I have reservations about it too. I love James Gunn, but I would have some reservations about Justice League, although I would be lying if I didn't tell you I'd be completely fascinated to see how that movie would turn out.
It would be fascinating. I would go see it.
So, oh yeah,
I would definitely go see it, but I feel like we have 3 movies with those, I mean, outside of the individual, but and with Zack Snyder's, and I just feel like it's so established as it is already. His tone would just be so different.
Right. And by the way, I just want to throw this in here too. A lot of people are losing their minds in the live chat saying Venom got delayed. They moved Venom 3 weeks. They announced earlier today they moved it 3 weeks. 3 weeks is, I don't count that unless you're like at least 6 weeks. I don't really count it as a delay. I mean, technically, yes, moving it 1 hour is a delay, but they moved it 3 weeks. Not a big deal. So, but I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit on the show tomorrow when we've got Rob here as well. Anyway, guys, the question for you is, how do you feel, or how theoretically would you feel about James Gunn, who has killed it with Guardians of the Galaxy and killed it with Suicide Squad? How would you guys feel about him maybe taking on Justice League? To me, it's got a lot of fascinating possibilities, but also I have some questions about style fit. I mean, but then again, I would have thought the same thing about the Russo brothers, and look how that turned out. Anyway, question is for you guys. How do you think about this? Jump on down to the comment section below and leave us your thoughts.